might be AMPHILSOC. Well, that's pretty easy. That pretty well says it. I think that's what they use for their own abbreviation. But some of his stuff is really obscure. But Mr. X is familiar with a lot of the scientific and other types of publications. So he's trying to verify and actually put together a library of what's on Fort's notes. Now, Fort didn't just use his notes for his books. He also had other, things that he'd found that he hadn't written about yet. So it's quite a collection. So John's doing that, and he has contacts around the world and in academia. So that's and he got me aside at the UFO History Group and said he gave me about 50 things that he thought ufologists should be doing yet. And I said, yeah, right. When we get an Institute of Ufology and we have about 1,000 workers, we'll get some of this stuff done.
Well, we're going to talk about that. We sure are. Barry Greenwood and Jan Aldrich, folks, two of the great ufologists taking interest. They're also historians and I don't know if we would say alienologists yet. I think they're more nuts and bolts is the way they say it. The kids say it today. But ufologist, alienologist, and we're talking about Charles, why do I want to say Charles? Is it John Fort, the Fortean records? Is that what we're discussing?
Yeah, Charles Fort. He wrote four books on anomalies, not just UFOs, but some people call him the father of ufology.
I thought he was the father of paranormal everything. So, okay, I didn't ever heard that he was the father of ufology, but I'm amazed. That's wonderful with you saying that with 50 years government history. I mean, that's amazing. Well, can I call you both ufologists? I know I claim that you are our lead historian, but I'm going to put Barry Greenwood and Jan Aldrich, ufologist, in all caps in the description while I still can.
Okay.
Will you claim that, or you want me just to say you're a historian?
Sure. Now,
okay, so explain what the ufologist does, because we break it down in business for the kids these days to, in our science is alienologist, cosmologist, phenomenologist, ufologist, not to mention all the crypto and cryptex and kryptonites and cryptoids, X-Files. Well, we have all these UFO events, and we're having them where they dress up. We're putting gaming with our computer people, androids with the Apple, So the kids have no clue what we're going through with the old guys saying what we are. So I'm real happy that Dr. Bruce Maccabee encouraged our ACO to take on Alien Contact Organization and UFO Association and combine them. So we're using the initials ACO and UFO, and he suggested we get you guys involved because you guys are the AI. And he said, you know what AI is, don't you? And I said, well, artificial intelligence. He said, no, Ancient Investigators. So you need to call Jan Aldrich, and he'll fill you in. So I guess you're going to be the first ufologist that's called an AI now. But go ahead, give us your version of what a ufologist is for all the old guys, and we'll. I'm sure I'll get a lot of emails and call-ins about all these people. But give me your best shot. What's a ufologist?
Well, it's like everything else. There's people that specialize in things. Some people go out and investigate cases. Some people organize files. and look for patterns. There's a lot of tasks involved. And like I was saying, John Reed asked me, he started asking me this, oh, well, has anybody checked the lighthouse logs? And I said, yeah, sure, John. We got 10 people working at the archives right now going through lighthouse logs.
Yeah, in your dreams, right?
Yeah, right. I went through some in 1947, and it's a real pain. I went through some Coast Guard ship's logs, but the Coast Guard doesn't file things by UFO. They file it by incident date, location, or if there's a ship involved, it's filed under the ship. So if you're looking for UFOs involving the Coast Guard, you have to know what you're looking for before you go look for it. So if you don't know, then it's turn over one page after the other, or read one logbook after the other.
Well, unless
it's
you're
more
an
or less
archivist or librarian. Oh, I'm sorry. I didn't.
Yeah.
I heard a space there for a minute. I was going to say, if you can help us all out as ufologists, which I am not one. I've been called that at one time with Stan Friedman because I wrote for UFO Digest, and I did a few, investigations as a real investigator, paid for, meaning, money-wise. But when there's no money involved, it's sort of a volunteer thing, which most of us are at here. So help us out here. So I know sometimes MUFON in the past has had training, but they got that star investigator going, and then Bigelow came in. But you know that whole story, I'm sure. Tell people, how many years have you paid your dues for MUFON or CUFOs or any others to be a part of a group? Can you give us a history?
When I got back from overseas in '94, I started getting more serious about it. Before that, if you're in the military, you don't have much free time.
No,
so after I retired, I more or less got, so '94, I got involved with FUFOR and CUFOS and MUFON. In fact, they had the UFO Research Coalition, and Bigelow funded that for about a year. It still exists, though. It's on paper, and they still have treasury and everything. So I got a grant from the Research Coalitions, and that's how Project 1947 started. It was an investigation of the beginnings of the UFO era, and I also wanted to look from 1900 till about 1965.
Well, you can't possibly have every UFO just because of what you said, personnel and lack of funds, and it wasn't digitized back then. So tell us, I'm not complaining at all. I'm just trying to help us all out here because we're trying to get us where people like you that have done the grunt work, working, from time to time with other people and other associations. I want us to see the best picture we can on this oral archive of what some of the issues have been, so we can come up with the solutions, right, in digital land or hyper internet or cyberspace.
Well, we need indexing of not just publications, but indexing of publications, and some of that is going on right now in Europe. The Association for the Unknown, AFU in Sweden, has giant files that they've accumulated from all over Europe and the United States, and they're placing this a lot of this material online. We need databases and there are two databases in existence right now. UFO Cat, which is as many UFO sightings as can be computerized. I would say it's way over 100,000 now. And then the Unicat, which is a more quality type of thing, and that hasn't been not much has been done on that in 40 years because Hynek was one of the leading lights in that, and Dr. Willie Smith was he was the computer expert, and both of them are now passed away. I told John Reed we need to have there's so many people that were involved in UFOs at one time or another, especially on the official side. I said we actually need a database of maybe who's who. Mrs. Helen Barber. She was the editor of the Air Intelligence Digest for the Air Force. So she's she was there, and General Garland used to task her all the time to do things about UFOs. I mean, she was all, Now, if you see any of the male guys running around, they hardly mention her. You have to look at the documents to find out. She's the one that went around and got photographs that people had forgotten about. They just filed them and forgot. And she, General Garland had her look into the possibility that UFOs were a possible German development that the Russians were trying to further. Ruppelt mentions her one time in his in all his records that he has. We have his records now. The head of Project Blue Book from 51 to 53. He just mentions her one time, but she was involved all over the place. And in Blue Book, you'll find her every once in a while there, but they don't say much about her, what she was doing, or anything like that. Of course, her husband was, I don't know if he was involved in UFOs, but the top secret history of Air Force intelligence says something like this. Colonel Barber is working in a job which we cannot put in this history here. So it's a top secret history, but they couldn't even tell what her husband was doing. It's kind of amazing. Like I say, not many people know who she was or what she was doing. There's a fellow named James Brewster. Now, he worked for Republic Aircraft. Now, I don't know how Republic Aircraft got into the UFO business, but in the early days, these guys were, all the meetings they said they had in the Pentagon, they used to have somebody from Republic Aircraft Corporation. And Brewster was one of them. And Brewster's writing KEO. So they're talking away in Air Force intelligence, and he's handing over information, which, KEO wouldn't take anything that was classified, and I don't think Brewster would offer anything that was classified. But he was feeding KEO information. In fact, in one of his letters, he said, I've gone over to the CIA and tried to get them interested in what's going on. He says, I think I've had some limited success. So, like I say, he's not well known either. There are a number of people like that. Charles Zimmerman, I saw one ufologist write